Some problems don't announce themselves as turning points. They unfold gradually, layered over routines that still look steady from the outside. Ryan's story didn't change all at once. It evolved across different chapters of life, shaped by service, responsibility, and the search for direction after long held structure shifted. After retiring from the military, the rhythms that once guided each day were no longer built in. Like many people navigating transition, Ryan had to relearn how to create structure, meaning, and balance in a new environment. That process brought reflection, recalibration, and a deeper look at the habits that had quietly become part of daily life. This conversation is about transition more than rupture, about noticing when something that once worked no longer does, about the role of faith, routine, and intention in reshaping how you show up for yourself and the people around you. Ryan talks about sobriety, family, and the work of building sustainable routines after major life change. He shares how discipline took on a different meaning, how honesty became a practice, and how growth came from paying closer attention rather than forcing outcomes. This isn't a story about blame or labels. It's a story about awareness, about choosing alignment over autopilot, and about discovering that meaningful change often begins quietly, with a willingness to look at your life as it actually is. Welcome to No One Is Normal, the podcast where real stories remind us that none of us are alone. You can also visit the website www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co for resources, updates, and future podcast episodes. I am Brad H. Hill, and each week we talk about the messy, the complicated, and the deeply human moments that shape us and remain in our memories. I am not here to tell anyone how to live. I am here to offer the stories, the insights that made me realize that no one is normal, including me, because healing starts when self-honesty begins. Hey Ryan, thank you for joining the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Brad. It's great to be here.
Before we get into the work you do now, who were you before anyone called you a leader, a coach, or a speaker?
Been a long time. I guess thinking back, I think all the way back to college before I joined the Army, and I was working in the lumberyard. Menards, for those who are in the Midwest and know Menards, say big money. It's kind of like Home Depot or Lowe's, just for the upper Midwest. And I worked there all through college and was out in the lumberyard slinging 2x4s and sheetrock and everything else. But even at that time, I still would say that I was a leader. When I think back, I was a captain of the football team in high school, so on and so forth. So it's really weird, the dynamic of like, is it a title? Is it a position? Is it how you carry yourself? Yeah, it's hard to really put my finger on that, but that's when I would think back to time and space and just being able to not be in charge and kind of just enjoy yourself while you still are making a living while you're going to college kind of thing.
Yeah, coming right out of school, I actually worked construction and did that for a few years, and I realized that with my fair skin, there's no way I would burn, blister, peel, and then repeat every day. And as I had to kind of get out of that, just because I just there's no way I could have survived. I probably would have had full blood cancer everywhere on my skin, by the time I got to the age I'm at now. So it's like, well, I got to make sure I have a good path forward.
No, I don't disregard any of that. I've that fair olive Austrian skin, as my grandma used to say when I was younger. So I enjoyed being out in the sun, tan up pretty nicely, but understand maybe as a possible ginger or however we want to call it. Definitely don't want to be all burnt up all summer long.
Yeah, no, I guarantee you if I pulled up my pant leg, I'd have about 40 or 50 people scattering or causing a car wreck or something. Just not cool, but you kind of got to live with the skin you're in, right? So when people hear you got 23 years in the military, you were a lieutenant colonel, they picture like discipline and control. How accurate is that image, and who are you really on the inside?
Yeah, I mean, today I'd call myself, it was, being Captain America on the outside and a burning city on the inside at the time. I wasn't always able to be myself. We call it like an operational assignment or so forth. And those are when you're getting ready to deploy somewhere in the world. Basically, those are the times you looking perfect, putting the work in and trying to keep it all together while you're getting ready to leave your, wife or your children for up to a year possibly. Yeah, the discipline and control side of that's a little different than when, you retire and you don't have all that structure and you find yourself kind of not knowing what to do. I was somebody who really needed all of that structure, getting up, early in the morning, working out, having meetings to go to, being that leader that the boys or girls needed. And, really for me, it fit the right way. It was what I had, I guess, possibly dreamed ever since being a little kid playing G.I. Joe in the front yard. And, after 23 years, it definitely probably had its moments at certain times, but overall it was what I needed to have, extended period and say whatever career it looked like.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. My grandpa's retired Navy. He was a teacher for the Navy for many, many years, and retired down in Memphis, and then now he's in Mississippi by Gulfport. But yeah, he had many years and a lot of stories. Do you got any good stories from the military that you can say without having any repercussions?
Yeah, no, I mean there's plenty of them. The hard thing is like, where do we want to start? That's the dynamic of it. I can think of funny ones of stealing, bosses' TV remotes that go missing from hailing for wells, and that wasn't a great thing. Kind of after you hear about what happened, their family dumping garbages and things like that. So I apologize to the Hodges out there. I don't know how many years later, but who knows where those remotes ended up. That was one. We had lots of dining ins or dining outs. So dining ins, like where you get locked in for the night. Probably a good idea, locking a bunch of, animals basically up in a ballroom and so forth and getting all kinds of trouble. The dining out's sometimes a little different. We call them sun dances and we dress up in our Native American garb and so forth. And we're the tomahawks. And, you just do all kinds of crazy different things. When I reflect back on it, though, it's still pretty cool because I know since retiring, I haven't done anything like that before, since there was certainly boondoggles and so forth in corporate America, but they certainly didn't hold a candle to any of the cool things that we did when I was in uniform. Trying to think of different, in Afghanistan, we ended up getting a bunch of motorcycles for the Afghan National Police Force, but we definitely used them a few times before we ended up handing them over. So it was pretty good, jumping them off the side of a mountain and so on and so forth.
Any
That's
of them not get
20 plus
delivered?
years ago. So, one of those things. We just chalk that one up to experience. Yeah, there's a lot of stories, a lot of good times, a lot of sad times. But, in the end, it's like anything else, it's part of the journey, right? It's always the
Hmm.
journey, not the destination. And, a lot of great men and women that would have never met, I guess, if I hadn't raised my right hand back in September 1999.
So when you kind of look back at like your life and a little bit of your military career, when did you talk a little bit about alcoholism and recovering from your bio? When did that really kind of start having its impact on you? Was it in the military after?
You know, it's really interesting. Like, I just, in general, think about those little tap you on the shoulder moments. I mean, I started drinking when I was 12 years old. Unfortunately, I don't know if I was 16 or 17 when I got in trouble. We were in Spain on our Spanish trip. So it was probably like November of 95, possibly, like a junior in high school. And we are in Malaga, and I got really, really drunk. And the first book I wrote, I think apologize, make some amends to Miss Veda, my Spanish teacher, and her husband who were chaperoning us. And I ended up spending, 6 weeks suspended from basketball that year. And those dynamics, I guess, is as you reflect on life and when did it become a problem? I'd say anytime like something like that happens, that's a problem, even though it's like one time. Because you fast forward 2 more years and I get arrested here at the All Minnesota tournament in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that would have been like the fall of '97. Another tap on the shoulder, right? Kind of
Right.
thing. Think about moments in the military that, you know, didn't really get in trouble. Probably was one of those where it's like we should watch how much you drink, or oh, you're blowing off steam. Get it? You just had a kid, and it's tough. Probably don't sleep that much, or whatever that looks like over time and space. All the hangovers, whatever it looks like. Thinking back 2.5 years ago, I got pulled over for, speeding, but I'd been drinking. So the dynamic, and then to get let off, all those times, those taps, like, hey, these are big, like the big moment ones, right? Not all the little moments. And so I think it's one where the military probably curbed it enough to like not have it be an everyday thing to the extent it was after I retired and was in corporate America, where you don't have to show up to the office. Even if you have to show up to the office, because after COVID, there's still a lot of remote work. So when I think about it, I mean, really, you could just hide behind the mask of, by 9 o'clock in the morning, I could sober up enough. It wasn't like rolling in. It's just where the military, it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to shut it off that much earlier. And if
Hmm.
if you got, an alcohol related offense of any kind, your career was over. And no one take this the wrong way. As a civilian, I didn't really have anything to lose, if that makes sense, because I had put such high prestige on where I was at, my military career, what I wanted my military career to look like. And if you ended up obviously with that offense, your retirement, all the healthcare, all the different benefits and so forth that you'd work towards would have went up in smoke. So some of that, as I reflect on it, is definitely the dynamic of when was it a problem? I mean, I think it was a problem. Uh, let's do some quick math. 35 years ago when I had my first drink.
I think I think I can relate fairly well to that. I think for me it was I think I was even preteen as I think as well. I don't remember the exact year, but I went to my dad's to visit, and my uncle was there, and we played some cards, drank some beer, and of course there was some Mad Dog 2020 in the fridge, and I was, I've had a few drinks before at that age, and nothing major, but then I drank probably a 12 pack of beer with my uncle and Mad Dog 2020. I think we finished off the bottle, and I got sick, and I was hungover for like 2, 3 days. That should have been like my, hey, I don't need to do this because this is stupid. This is how I felt. Like I'd eat breakfast, get rid of it, and come back up.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, all right, eat lunch, same thing. And it was 2 days later, and actually my mom came and got me. She found out through my grandma. So I got a phone call. I'm coming to get you now, and I was like, well, that was kind of the start of it. And that was like you said, a tap on the shoulder. And throughout my life, the taps got a little bit harder, and they started becoming punches and not shoulder taps anymore. Um, and then I got a OWI in my early 2000s, and I had a blow start my car for a year. That was embarrassing. Every time you're going somewhere, your car beeps, you got to blow into it. And, you know, good thing about it is I didn't hurt anybody. I just kind of affected my life, which it could have always been a lot worse. Um, but it was still kind of the embarrassing getting pulled over, going through the whole process, and then, just going through the whole spiel, getting the OWI insurance for driving. That was expensive. Going to court, just pled no contest. Just wanted to get it over
Mhm.
with and done with. Um, to me, I did it, so why the hell would I try to fight it? Um, and then what was weird is I kind of, once I got my OWI, I kind of sheltered myself in, and that kind of
Mm.
created a more, like, I didn't want to get another OWI because in Wisconsin, the second one, you get jail time, right? And then it starts to get worse and worse. And, the first one, that was enough for me, you know? So then it put me in a kind of a reclusive state. So I would just sit at home and have drinks, and well, that was safe. Well, unfortunately, when you do that enough, it becomes a
Yeah.
problem.
No, I get it. It's one of those dynamics, I think, for us, like enjoying it too. I mean, my dad was a recovering alcoholic. So when I started drinking, he had been sober for probably 6 years, I think. And I think that was kind of a little bit of it was like, well, why can't he? Why can't he? I totally get it today. No different, right? The dynamic is for me, I do everything in excess. There's not a single thing that I've figured out today that I don't. So cool. I removed like alcohol and prescription drugs from my life. So I don't abuse those anymore. But when it came to, okay, other drugs, great. Sounds good. Then it's like,
Right.
okay, can't do that. And it's like nicotine, caffeine, candy, sugar, ice cream. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like I will do it in excess until it causes some type of problem with myself. And that's the dynamic of it. I see it in everything now I've done. Being sober over 2 years now, it's one where I
Congratulations on that. That's
thank
a
you.
pretty remarkable
Appreciate
thing
it.
for a lot of people who can't get there. It's sometimes repetitive and painful for them to try to get to that point. But I think a lot
Yeah.
of people inspired to be at that at some point.
Yeah. No, it's just I've just been able to, stack a number of days and consecutively because if I look to, if I look into tomorrow, even that's a long way away from the dynamic of this, you know, obsession of the mind that I have where, it's like I'll obsess over nothing, right? And that's just the dynamic that causes the fear and the anxiety of the unknown. And it's like, well, all she can do is focus on this. So like the dynamic is have an amazing conversation with Brad right now. And
Right.
whatever is supposed to come later on this evening, like it'll come when it comes. And so that to me is where I was actually having a conversation this afternoon with a guy about that. I had a meeting and I happened to be like the chair and it's like, I can hand it off to somebody else. I don't really want to go today, kind of thing. And you start to reflect on that kind of stuff. And there's everything I don't want to do. Like I didn't want to go to the gym this morning. I didn't want to get out of bed this morning, kind of thing. It was warm, it was dry, it was safe. And yeah, that's to me how we all possibly feel. I don't know. I mean, I asked you that question, I guess, like this morning, how'd you feel like, when it came to getting out of bed? Were you ready to jump right out and get going?
There's some days I can jump out of bed and just go, and then there's some days where I think the pillow's glued to my head and I don't want to move. I think everybody kind of gets that way, and it kind of depends on how you sleep. Any of the
Right. Yeah.
deciding factors if you got a lot of stress going on. One of the things that you brought up was I thought was pretty interesting, and I kind of had the same thing. Is I kind of just have a goal, right? Some people might have that dimmer switch. They can turn it on, just a little bit. I'm just a light switch on off. Like that's where I'm kind of like I am better not doing it because once the switch turns on, it's on until I don't remember if it's on or not.
Yeah.
And I just don't have that dimmer switch like a lot of people do. So, when did alcohol become something that you stopped using when you started to realize that it was using you?
Yeah, it's really wild. Is just it's funny how have something like this literally 3 hours ago talking to somebody about it, the dynamic where you realize every day was a celebration. I mean, I celebrate it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let's do it all over again. There was never, hey, it's so and so's birthday. We should celebrate. It's like, no, it's Monday. Like we're gonna celebrate. And I think that was just my excuse, right? To have something to be excited about. And I had plenty in life to be excited about. I think it's just the dynamic where once everything came and went, I was like, that's what that was supposed to be like. It just didn't fill my cup back up anymore. And so I was running on empty. And that's where I found, myself. These are no proud moments here, like going to strip clubs, trying to find, I guess, the highs that you had in the military when, we were downrange. I don't say this to be bravado but we're out manhunting the dynamic of the ultimate sport, and there's no rush, there's no high, there's nothing that I've come across anyways that is that same drug
Adrenaline
or whatever
rush,
you want
right?
to call it. And so I had basically sinned myself to oblivion in November of 23. And um, it's crazy because when I reflect on it now, I just think about like what a piece of shit I'd become. I have two, now adult children, two adult young women. It's my daughters, and who I'd become, the monster I'd become, trying to feel something when it came to, going out, running around, having a good time, spending a lot of money, the alcohol, the drugs, the women, all these dynamics that trying to fill the God-sized hole I had inside of me. And when I reflect back on it now today, it was just I was a little boy scared, running from any form of responsibility and accountability that was held against me. And I've been running ever since, I was a little kid. That dynamic of having to tell the truth and be held accountable. That's something today when I reflect on it where I'm absolutely going to tell the truth, and I want to be held accountable for my actions, whatever they may be, because that's, if you're going to call yourself a man, like that's the brutal honesty in it. And,
Hmm.
it was a good run, but I'm not proud of, where I ended up, how it ended up. I destroyed a 25-year relationship with somebody that thought, he'd go to the grave with. One of my children, it took 2 years to have her back into my life because of the disappointment, the anger, the resentment. And I get it. Today, I'm like, I totally makes total sense. I realize what I put into my military career out of fear, out of, trying to make a certain rank, whatever it needed to look like. That's what I want to put into my life, like every single day now, just as a human being. And I don't know how that all happened, how that all came to work. I don't believe I had really anything to do with it. It's like a divine perspective, at
Hmm.
least the way I look at it, because I can't see how you go from where I was over 2 years ago to where I am today. I just, it's not natural, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. I tried to do the whole Midwest sober thing, right? Only drink on the Friday, Saturday, Sundays type thing. So there's the Midwest sober, and I don't know. I got to the point where it just wasn't a good feeling anymore. Where I'd get up, go to work, and it was kind of like program. Come home, pour two drinks, and that was my day every day. And just kind of use that to unwind. And then you wake up the next day, and it just compounded. And by the time I got to the point where I'm like, you know, why am I putting myself through this? And my wife, and really, like, how do I fix it? And for me, it was not doing it anymore, because like I talked about before, is I just have the light switch. I don't have the dimmer. You know, I don't have the Midwest sober dimmer switch, right? So I can just do it a couple days a week and be okay.
Yeah, for sure. I laugh from that side of it because yeah, there's certainly I always had it's like I can if I only had two, I get heartburn kind of thing. So then I need to have more, so then I don't have heartburn. And so that never really worked out very well either. So, but I like that. I don't know if I've ever heard that Midwest sober Friday set.
Oh, that's like California sober, right? For the people
Yeah,
that
we
smoke
just do
weed.
marijuana.
Yeah, they just do marijuana. They don't drink, but yeah, I definitely think we got some Midwest sober going on in the Midwest
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Hey, I mean, it's good on you. Yeah, it's just unfortunately not me. So
Yeah, no, not me. I prefer not to. Like I said, it's been 6 months for me since I kind of relapsed. When I left my
awesome.
job, I kind of like, well, I don't have a responsibility. I'm kind of reframing my life. I was in a process of almost finishing the book, and I just kind of just started drinking more and more. And it was about 3 months where I was getting up and drinking, and I'm like, I gotta stop this. This is pretty bad. And it took basically Bonnie just saying, uh, she never said this before. She never said I really had a problem, but this was getting to the point where she said, I'm kind of starting to worry about you. If you wake up and are having a drink because you feel like crap, then you got to stop. So I kind of started getting rid of the mornings and then kind of tapering back off, and then kind of got to the point where, okay, I'm done. It was pretty scary, and I never really had lost control like that. And it,
Mhm.
it really was eye-opening to think that, I had that fishing hook, like you see that picture of the fishing hook in the bottle when somebody's taking a drink. Yeah, I got hooked at that point. I was like, well, okay, now I gotta get myself away from this. So how did faith change your attitude towards recovery and your addiction?
Yeah, it's really interesting now. When I think about some of the coursework that I teach and things, I teach focus, and it's acronym for faith, opportunity, consistency, unconditional kindness, and the standard. 2 years ago, it certainly didn't start. I had to start with the standard first. What is that going to look like? For me, it was going to AA meetings, and then I started going to church. And then from there, I started going to the Alpha course. So, a Christian course to basically reblue myself. I ended up buying my first Bible a year and a half ago, and then Bible study. And then I started teaching sixth grade boys at church. So in it, it took like this whole 2 years of like training myself into seeing the faith side, the front side of focus. And today now I just understand that focus looks like the 3 wins that I have to put in every single morning as soon as I get up. And that's why I was asking, like, jump out of bed, because part of it is, physical win, mental win, spiritual win. So for me, I put in, go to the gym. Mental and spiritual, I kind of put together. I read my Bible as the mental, and then spiritual is just like a meditation period.
Hmm.
And a lot of time right now, I do it when I read my Bible. I lay on the couch, and I have a lamp that comes over the top of it. And when I'm done and go into meditation, I think of myself. We lived in Hawaii a couple different times, stationed there when I was in the army. And I'm like, I'm on a beach in Hawaii, and this is like the sun kind of coming down. And next thing you know, like you fall asleep. It's like falling asleep at the beach. So, in it all, through these practices, my faith has become everything. Knowing in entrepreneurship now today, it's the scariest thing I've ever done. I'd rather sign back up, join the army, get deployed somewhere. At least from that side of it, every month you're getting paid. In entrepreneurship, we got to put the work in to get paid. There to
Yeah.
help somebody out, coach them through, what they're struggling with. And they're probably struggling with something that you've encompassed like the last 47 years of your life, let alone the last 2 years, going through divorce and in recovery and child estrangement, job loss, whatever it looks like. But the greatest gifts come through that. And then your faith like just gets stronger and stronger. And
Hmm.
I can see how people can look at their faith and have it kind of ebb and flow or whatever you want to call it, because we don't have the patience. We don't have the determination or the discipline to know that it's going to come. When I reflect on all the days, weeks, years of my life, anytime I was worried about not getting, I think about in the military, every 2 years we'd move. And it was always like, where are we going to end up? I hope it's not here, 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 here. I hope it's only here, here, and here. So that was pretty amazing that we ended up here, here, and here, and never here, 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 here. Just random. All the other guys got stuck with here, 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 here. So I think about that in every single thing that's happened in my life, and knowing today, all of a sudden, why is my faith? It's stronger than it's ever been, but at times, kind of the last few days, with my routine being different, I found myself lacking that faith that I believe is so strong. So it's an everyday reflection in seeing how far am I going to let it go in or out, depending on what I want to put into my day when it comes to those faith practices. And now today, it's what I when I focused on something, faith's the first thing. It's not the standard, because the standard's already in play. So everything else comes into it. It starts with my faith. I can see opportunities every single day, knowing that in the consistency in my routine with my physical, my mental, my spiritual win, first thing in the morning. So I have a saying in this coach group that I'm in, how you execute your 5 to 9 locks in your 9 to 5 kind of thing. And so like I can't win, I can't lose from 9 to 5 as long as I get in my wins from 5 to 9. It's just one of those. And I see it all the time now. If I start to, I'll sleep in, and I better get to the gym though before I start anything else, because the day gets slippery, gets ugly. That doesn't happen. I've never been somebody that like wants to work out in the afternoon or the evening. It's just never been for me. It just doesn't work that way. So it's got to be first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I find it a lot easier to get up in the morning and do it, even though you're just like, it kind of sucks when you're getting up right away and working out. But like you said, the day gets away pretty quick. You might have a day like I've been in management for 10 years. All of a sudden, you got a normal 9 hour day. All of a sudden, well, now it's 12 hours, and you get done. Your butt's kicked. You just like don't
Yeah.
even want to think about going to the gym because your brain's just like on fire and short circuiting. You're just like, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go home. I just
Yeah.
go to a safe place because going to the gym right now just ain't gonna happen. I'll probably
Right.
forget how to lift a weight.
Absolutely.
So, you kind of talked about your daughters and your relationship, and that I imagine that the addiction kind of affected the way you showed up as a husband and a father. Has that changed dramatically now versus the past?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I did a good job, right? Or believe I did a good job hiding it. I was like waiting for them. Certainly, I'm sure they saw me at barbecues, drinking in excess or parties and so forth. Or they were tied up with their friends, because actually my youngest daughter was like, "Are you really an alcoholic? You never really, I mean, we never really saw you." And I guess that's the thing, right? When you're hiding it and you wait till they go to sleep or they're in their rooms and you go to them in the basement and you watch football games and, crush, a case of beer kind of thing, whatever that looks like. The prescription drug side of it, they'd never know, because that was certainly something that you take whenever you're taking them. And how does that affect you? I think where it really affected me was my last deployment, 19 to 20. And I was coming back we built our retirement house in Washington State. I was going to be a financial advisor. It was this long drawn out plan, something that had been in the works for like a dozen years. And COVID happened, and the girls wanted to retire in Minnesota, which 180 degrees, opposite direction, just to me did not, where did this come from? I get where it came from at the time. We had lived in Washington, or they had lived in Washington for 6 or 7 years. I'd come and went a few times with deployments and so forth. So it'd been 6 years since they'd been back in Washington when we finally moved there to retire. And so when we came back, everything had changed. The homeless camps that were, next door to the neighborhood that we lived in, everything was different. they were that much older, so all the stomping grounds that they thought were cool and could remember, it wasn't what they remembered, or it had changed completely. That and their best friends lived back in Minnesota that they had, basically been friends with since 2014. Still are best friends today. So when I reflect back on it, to me, that was almost like where it was like a fracturing of, I had put what I believe, yes, I had the military and that's what I wanted. But as a family unit, we'd always made decisions as a family. So it was like, hey, here's the wish list for the next, you know, move. What does it look like? And we do pros and cons. Everyone had like their little whiteboard and stuff,
Yep.
and we'd come up with it. And sure enough, I had the last say always, but at the same time, it was three gals and one guy and a couple dogs or whatever kind of thing, or a dog and a cat. So it was pretty easy for me to go, all right, we'll go this route. But I think on my last appointment, when the girls had asked, can we retire in Minnesota and not Washington? And I had put all those eggs in the Washington basket. I felt basically cheated that all these years that, sure, I was working in the military for myself, but as a unit, we were a family and we made decisions as a family. And all of a sudden, I'm deployed. We had just moved them all there into the retirement house, literally coming back, and all I'd have to do was 2 more years, and I'd retire. The dream job that I wanted, working with my best friend just down the street. I think I had a lot of resentment. And so when everything worked out, we moved to Minnesota, built a big retirement house here, ended up getting the Fortune 500 job, which made a lot of great money and all those things. I think it was like I just blown off steam that I had kind of kept pushing those feelings down, 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 down. And if I did ever voice them, maybe personally I didn't feel that anyone was listening. And so I just burnt it to the ground then. And in the end, it's unfortunate. But when I look at it today and I spend time with my girls, both of them now, we have unbelievable conversations and talk about things we would have never talked about because we would have just swept them under the rug like we did before. And now our life, my life anyway, is all out in the open. And seeing them live today, they're both stronger because I enabled a lot of things. I was like daddy warbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dad will take care of that. You two girls, I want you to focus on school. You don't need to have a job kind of thing. And well, you're not doing a sport this year. Don't worry about it. You can have all that free time. And I think I was enabling a lot of things as well and not facing stuff. I was always running. I was always running from the truth. And now today, reflecting on it, as hard and as harsh as it all was and has been, it's kind of been like that forging of everybody to basically become who we were all always supposed to be. And it looks nothing like we thought it would or should, but I think it's better, as sad as that sounds, just because uh, I know I was living a lie, put it that way.
Taking a quick pause here. If this episode is resonating, I would love for you to follow the No One is Normal podcast on whatever platform you listen on. Every follow helps this show reach people who might need these stories. Now let's jump back in. Yeah, I think I think there are a lot of high performing people out there that are stuck in the alcohol loop, right? And it's so hard to kind of get out of that. Sometimes it's job related, relationship related. You got stress in your life, you got all this stuff going on, and when you kind of step back and look at everything, all alcohol is doing is one, time shifting, and two, is creating a really bad outcome for the future. No matter what, you're losing that time almost every day that you could be doing anything, building relationships or doing anything, that you're spending time just sitting your ass on a couch and just sucking down beers and trying to forget your life while everybody else is trying to live theirs.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. I think about what I've done the last 2 years when it comes to like being a contributing member of society, right? The dynamic of that. I've done more the last 2 years than I did the previous 33 years when it comes to service and giving back to the community, trying to help, everyone around me, just basically doing the next right best thing. Because before I was so selfish. It's like, oh, I'm deploying again. I'm not going to help out with this. I just got back from a deployment. I'm not going to help out with that. Just so selfish. Just so selfish.
Well, it's hard too because there's stuff that probably stacked up when were gone, and then you had to come home and like, well, I'm tired, I'm taking a break, and well, yeah, you're taking a break, but you also got responsibilities and roles that have to be achieved here, and I can see both sides of that coin, right? You need a little bit of unwind time because you're just going to go back into the hot zone, right? And then everybody here is just going to be like, well, they're going to go on with their life, and you're going to be dodging bullets.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can definitely agree with that. It's one of those where my dad had a saying on his Zippo lighter from Vietnam. It said, those who have fought for it, freedom has a taste the protected will never know. And it's not, when I say that, I don't look at it to put anybody in, this is what I was, it's like Lieutenant Dan and his family, right? I was born into it. Both my grandfathers were World War II veterans in the Navy. My father was a Vietnam veteran, and then I obviously served 20 plus years here with the Global War on Terror. And I think the hardest thing, though, of it for me when I'd come back was like those who I just could never understand like the complaining side of how hard life is for someone who like hadn't had to fight for anything, I guess, that dynamic, you know what I mean? And so it's not saying that we don't all of us have tough lives. I've never had to lose a child. I've been able to be around for 47 years. I have so many buddies that I lost over the last 20 plus years. I'm thinking about their parents being basically my age today and losing their sons or daughters. I just can't even fathom that. So all those different pieces of the puzzle. Now I don't think that way. Now I don't have those emotions or those feelings when it comes to, because we're all suffering from something. We're all struggling from something. None of us have any idea what, Brad or Ryan are going through. But you and I are here trying to talk about it so others, if they are going through similar circumstances, maybe it doesn't hurt as much, or they hear a lesson in it that, will ease some of that pain. And that today is where I see anybody can be a help or of service to someone next to them. It's loving thy neighbor, as plain and simple as it comes. And what
Mm.
does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's, some people kind of get in their own way in life, and they make like mountains out of molehills. And, this one thing happened, and oh my God, my cat threw up on my homework, or something happened, and, and they're devastated. Well, I get it. You kind of got to suck it up a little bit, and life's not going to be fair or even. Somebody might live most of their life and never have any trials and tribulations, and there's somebody who every time they get up, somebody's kicking them in the shins. So it's you kind of got to figure out, how's my life going to be, and I got to make sure that I am going to be happy doing what I'm doing, and what can I do to help others. That's kind of where no one is normal kind of came from. Is I started with my own
Yeah.
trials and tribulations, and I'm hoping that people, one, listen, can take something from it, and maybe improve their situation.
Mm.
It's kind of the same with what you're working on right now. And speaking of what you're working on, let's kind of talk about what you have. You got a few books, a website, and kind of go through what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the business side of it's called Our Protector Development. I think back to my military career, OPD was Officer Professional Development. So it's kind of funny how that fell into place the way it did. But yeah, a consulting firm that focuses on one-on-one coaching or group coaching And then we also have speaking as well in an online course. So ourprotectordevelopment.com is kind of the hub where I would send anybody today, probably transition to a new website where it is Our Protector Development, but also Ryan T. Reichert, as we look at kind of more taking things to different stages and so forth when it comes to the speaking side of it and the
Mm-hmm.
seminars that we promote and so forth. But yeah, I have a book series out there, kind of takes the reader through basically divorce, loss of Fortune 500 job, recovery, and finding yourself. It's God only knows when the devil comes for you, a second chance at life. The second book is The Icarus Effect, the highs and lows of our emotions. We all have feelings, and that's where we look at basically as boys becoming men and how we have to be brutally honest with everything that we do in life and the things that we face. And then back in November, came out, did a co-authorship with Jack Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. There's 12
Nice.
of us that did that. And then the third book of the series, of the Our Protector Development series, will be Let's Get Spiritual, the six-step method to transform your life. That'll come out here in February. We have a TEDx Duluth talk on 6 February, and basically that'll coincide with the release of the next book in the series. And basically, though, like, yeah, if you're needing somebody, I think about today, I have more coaches today than I ever have. I feel like I'm on a professional, NFL team, where you got a quarterback coach, a running back coach, a linebacker coach. So, I can't see running a business without having, like sales and marketing coach. Ben Newman was the mindset, coach that I utilized and got certified with from when it comes to, overall mindset training, thinking about my military background as well, those dynamics. And so really the focus at the end of the day is of that, is to work on your faith that allows you to have the opportunity to be consistent every single day as you're unconditionally kind to everyone under the sun. And how you do that is your standard, or the standard that you're going to live by. And that can look like a lot of different ways, but we basically have someone, go through an assessment and, of that come up with a game plan for you to have the life you want. Used to call them vision boards. They're called focus boards today. That's
Right.
how we go through it. And you basically will transcribe your life on what do you want to look at it from a 1 year at a shot, and basically build that out. And if you can focus for 365 days in each of those areas, you'll have basically the life you've dreamt of for the next year in a year's time. And then you'll every quarter change it because things will come off and so on and so forth. And you just keep building upon it. It's pretty neat to see. Uh, when I reflect, one of my good buddies a year ago, I'm not into New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you are or not, Brad, but basically he was like, I know you're not into New Year's resolutions, Ryan, but just humor me. And a year ago, he's like, what would it look like? And I said, I'd write one book. The business would be in a better place and I'd be in better shape. So the only thing I quantified was I'd write one book. That was the only thing I quantified, because what does it mean to have your business in a better shape? There's no KPIs to that. To be in better shape, what does that look like? I didn't say lose 10 pounds. I didn't say be able to bench 300. I didn't quantify any of it. So reflecting over Christmas, same guy, same similar conversation. So we wrote 3 books in 2025, with the fourth book coming out here in a month. The business is got, our protector development media with the podcast that I forget. We have our healer, our protector, with Lisa Sander and Ryan Reichert. So a podcast that helps, those who are struggling through the divorce and estrangement and so on and so forth that can happen when you have, the brutal honesty come to fruition in relationships. So they have the media side there. You have the writing. We help people write books with our protector development publishing. And yeah, we have the coaching and speaking side of things. So it's obviously in a much better place than it was a year ago. And when it comes to being in shape, sure, I've lost 15 pounds, I think, over the last year. Certainly down into, if I still had the pants, that would fit. I think I had to get ones that are quite a bit smaller now, kind of, not fall off myself. But I've changed it looking into 2026. When 2026 finishes, it's, basically where we'll do three more books in 2026, looking at moving the business to seven figures in 2026. And then when it comes to, where I'm at, like physically, is, being back to, lifting 305, like back in the day, of being in the military when you could actually throw some weight around. So there you go. You got to quantify it. And that's what really gets after it. Because if we're just making it all rainbows and unicorns and whatever, it's really hard to say, did you have a successful career? Because I didn't feel that way when I finished things up last week. And you really have to go, okay, I can now focus on specifically what it looks like. And I know next year it'll be one of those things. So
Yeah, former executive that I really respect, a former John Deere VP. He said one thing that kind of stuck with me. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So that kind of comes to that quantitative is if you don't set a goal and you try to get to that goal, you don't measure it, you're not going to be able to follow the steps to get to that goal. You got to put something out there, and you got to be able to figure out how to get like the KPI or the metric to be able to get to that point. Um, I think that's really important. So, what if, like, I know you talk a lot about spirituality. What if somebody's more spiritual versus religious? How can they approach you and kind of be like non-denominational, not be a Christian and talk with you?
definitely for me, I'm certainly, the spiritual side is way more important than, I religion's man-made from that dynamic of it. So I truly believe in spirituality and how that works and how that comes to fruition. You don't have to believe either. You can believe in, just anything other than yourself being the God of your universe, where what does that look like? And it's a dynamic of it. That's where the focus side, you start with the standard and you work your way through the faith side, you'll start to see, all of it come together. And that's just what it takes to grow. I think of that all the time. Two mantras that I always say is, discipline over feeling and growth over comfort. It's that ability to, see what you plant and having the ability to water it over time and space to, have that bountiful harvest in the end. Really, to me, is only through time, space, and discipline will you get there. And it's going to hurt. You have to put the work in, and it's painful, but I don't think there's any other way. We all have to suffer through it, and you'll see the fruits of your labor in it. And it just takes some time. The program we run is a 21-day habit builder. And then within 90 days is when you'll see the transformation basically. But it's 90 straight days doing the same things over and over and over again. And it's one of those, we can all do it. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the way I look at it. It's like I'm North Dakota public education, the dynamic of it all. I never thought I'd be an airborne ranger. I certainly never thought I'd serve 23 years in the military. Didn't believe I'd ever work for a Fortune 500 company and build a risk management division, only to get laid off 2 years into it and say, we saved this many $1 million. But we had built the software in the program for them to obviously hit go, and you don't need the people. It's okay. Because now, without all that happening, I'm not here talking to you. That's certainly, those are the things to me where everything that happens, the reason why it happens is because something better's coming. And only through your work and finding the right people to help along the way can you get there. But those are the opportunities that you'll see when you start to really focus, that O and focus. Those opportunities just keep coming.
Yeah, and I'm more of a positive person, and I think that seems to be a little bit more where it seems like good things tend to happen a little bit more for me because I always try to think of the positive side. And sometimes that negativity just kind of it's like a battery, right? You touch the negative on the battery, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm just getting drained.
Oh, 1,000%. It's really interesting. As I was doing some research, the first book, the normal person, I think it's 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And of those, 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. So you say you're positive. I just believe you're less negative of a thinker. So it's one of those where you're lowering the negative bar. So because as soon as you have that negative thing happen, like me, right? The dynamic, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. That's a negative thought. It's not a
Hmm.
positive thought. That's a negative thought. And so you just start putting on repeat. Well, then all I do is walk across the street, go to the gym, and then okay, we don't have to worry about that. And it just starts lower, and the negativity bar keeps going down. So that's what it becomes is having less negative thoughts, and where you can be grateful for everything that happens to you, everything that's going on in front of you. You're grateful. The car's got a quarter tank of gas in it. You're like, man, I only got a quarter of a tank. You'd be like, no, man, like we good. Like, like we still got a quarter of a tank. No big deal. I don't get paid till Friday. I'll do the math. Can you go to work all the way till Friday on what you got? Yep. All right. You good to go. Don't worry about it. And that's what's hard. It's taken me a long time to realize that's what it looks like in every single thing that happens. Do you still have your eyesight? Yes. Well, I don't know what the math is. I know after this, I'm going to go look it up. How many people in this world are blind? My mom was a visually impaired teacher in her special education days. I can't fathom that. I just don't even. Nope. Sorry.
There's always going to be trials and tribulations in life, and you're going to have to cope with it no matter what it is. It's hard, and it's even thinking and talking about that. Like, how do you kind of talk to and console somebody who's had their light switch turned off, and now they just got to cope with it, and it's that I'm thankful for everything that's happened in my life in a positive, and I was able to overcome many obstacles and stupid things, but I consider myself fortunate.
Mm-hmm. No, 1,000% definitely couldn't agree more. There's so many different things. I think all the time, warm, dry, and safe. Warm, dry, and safe. And right now, so I got roof over my head. The heat keeps kicking on and off, and no one's shooting or blowing me up right now. So like we are warm, dry, and safe, and yeah, blessed at
Hmm.
so many things to be grateful for today. The things that I don't have, it's funny because I still have them. It's just I'm looking too many days down the road and going like the lack, and it's like, dude, right now, like you're it should be on cloud nine. And anything and everything a year ago, like you didn't have this, and this. So yeah, it's how we want to look at things. We're blessed. We all are blessed, and that's the thing. The life we're living right now, this is people's dreams.
Hmm.
People literally dream to have the life you currently have. So just know that it can always be worse. It certainly can always be worse.
Yeah, that's one thing I started to practice a lot more. Is before I even get out of bed, I kind of think of the things I'm grateful for, and just that's the first thing I think of. I'm grateful for this, that, and the other thing. That helps to get that kind of negativity gone, and that kind of helps me to get like I'm doing this because of my wife, my animals, right? I don't have kids, so it's like, well, I'm doing this for them, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm doing things for my family and everything else. And what I'm grateful for is there's many things. And a lot of people, they don't even sit back and reflect. They could have a list of 70 things that they could be grateful for, and they just don't even think about it, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it is.
So, what does normal mean for you now?
I mean, normal today is there's just nothing comprehensible of normal. I just think about how my week looks between like Fridays, it's like Bible study, then work, then go have lunch with a bunch of guys that we meet together, then have a meeting together. Then it's like finish the week off. Like right now, it's a Friday night.
Hmm.
And what am I thinking about right now is like doing a little bit of work after this, hanging out with the dog, not going across the street to the bar, not, whatever. And then it's just like, it keeps like continuing to just get better. And it looks the same like every day. And then, a couple weeks we'll be doing the mission project. This group of us that, basically trying to change the world, right? I call it like the Misfit Avengers,
Mm-hmm.
giving back to communities and promoting ourselves while trying to build others up. We're doing like the Palisades. It's 1 year anniversary since the Palisades fire out in California, and having a Heroes Awards show and so forth, and basically looking at like everyone who sacrifices so much, and giving back to them basically in such a way that they're not looking to get recognized, but here's the dynamic of it. How do you promote a community to come back? People wanting to continue to build their community back up without having folks try to give way together, and that these are things that I never would have thought I'd be a part of. TEDx. Never would have thought that I'd be doing TEDx Duluth here in February.
You have a lot to
Been
be grateful and thankful for
It's
too,
just
you
I have
know.
so many things to be grateful for. Spring break coming up with my youngest daughter, who um, we hadn't went on a trip in a few years together with all the dynamics, and her not being in my life, and for us to get to go to spring break together here in a couple months. There's so many things when I think of like when I focused on myself to do the work to clean up my side of the street. We basically I just grew up. I finally grew up. That's what it comes down to. Peter Pan, unfortunately, didn't get to come with this time around. So
Yeah, that seems to be a theme is when you're younger, the reflection isn't really there until you start to get into your mid 40s, maybe 30s too, but you start to kind of reflect on things and think about where you're at, where you were, and you really put things in perspective. It's probably just, our limited timeline, right? We're starting to get to that point where um, it's not if, it's when, right? So
when,
somewhere in there is a timeline. It's what do we do in the time of in our dash, right? From when
yeah,
we're born until when we die, and that to me is probably one of the most important things, that a lot of people just I don't want to do anything today. Then a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, and they're just living the same repetitive thing over and over and over, and not trying to better themselves and trying to make some improvements.
yeah, it's very easy to do. I
Hmm.
think one of those where, I watched over 20 years fast forward because I was so focused on the next rank, the next rank, the next rank, the next rank. Next thing you know, it was all over with and doing one of these.
Hmm.
And that was it. So it's definitely different today, taking not taking any of it for granted, and putting that best foot forward. That to me is, are you proud with the effort that you're putting in? I think is really what and it's in every block, it's in every area.
Hmm.
So it's like from 9 to 5, like professionally. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can say that. But it's not before it was like, from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Like that was like my professional swath. And it overlapped, unfortunately, so many different areas where now it's like, all right, where are we plugging in, my my different pieces of each of it. Kind of like just texting the girls, just like, what you up to? And one of them was like, hanging out with so and so, so and so, so and so. What's up? Kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I'm like, to get a text like that is pretty fun, just because it's like, hey, I'm just seeing how you're doing. I want to know how Miss Boo is doing, and it's like no big deal. I don't need their anything to fill anything up in me anymore. I know that now they'll always be able to like, hey, we should call dad. And
Hmm.
it's not like, oh, we don't want to wake him up. He's probably PO'd, like if we were to wake him up right now, kind of thing. It's like that dude's sitting there like a Care Bear jumping around in the clouds, kind of thing, because like he's sober, he's good. Like there's nothing out there that ruins his day. He doesn't get upset when this happens or that happens because it's so insignificant. It's the so what factor.
Yeah, it's like Murphy's Law. It could always be worse, and eventually, it's the everything is cyclical, right? The wave goes up, wave goes down. And eventually, this too shall pass, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, eventually it's going to come back to an equilibrium, and you're going to have that fluctuation of good and bad. Well, Ryan, hey, first and foremost, thank you for the time today. If you would, if you could just kind of talk to somebody who is going through the struggle that you went through, what would you tell them, and how would you get them to kind of seek out help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. No, whoever's listening to this or watching this is, I know what you're going through. It's hard and you don't want anybody's help. You don't want anything. You just want to basically just stop existing. And I understand that. Been there. But you got to ask for help. You got to seek help. You got to, whoever will listen to you, there's plenty of phone numbers to dial and people to talk to. Not AA is not for everybody kind of thing. For me, it worked. I found myself in an AA meeting and kept going. I don't know how many I've an X hundred number 100 of them over the last couple of years. I think 400 and some. But just like Brad and I've done the last hour, however long it's been, to me, this is like an AA meeting. And the dynamic of it is where we're just two human beings having a spiritual experience through conversation, through some laughter, telling
Mm-hmm.
some, little jokes or old stories in this dynamic. And you have to surround yourself with others that suffer from what we suffer from. Unfortunately, it's an obsession of the mind that creates us to think a lot of different things. So just reach out. My phone number is 360-951-9202. At a minimum, you just need somebody to talk to. Give me a call, shoot me a text. It's one of those dynamics of it's just you need to talk to people. And the more
Mm-hmm.
you talk to people, the better you feel. Next thing you know, give it enough days, weeks, months, it works out. It gets better. I can't fathom. I should almost go grab it like off the fridge. I have a picture of the girls and I before like things kind of like shot off into the galaxy, but I weighed 50 pounds more, goatee with my sunglasses on, probably got a big Copenhagen in and so heavy in the face. Like when I look at it, I'm like, who is that guy? And I get that we've all been in a place that we're not proud of where we're at. We're not happy. We're miserable, but it's got to start somewhere. So, like I said, give me a call. Call whoever you have to call. Get help. Don't think it's not manly to ask for help. That to me in itself, I think that's what I struggled with for so long. Is I thought I could keep doing it myself, and I couldn't. And so when I finally said I had enough, that first meeting I went to was amazing because I just sat there, 2 ears and one mouth, like shut this thing for the first time in a long time. Probably doesn't seem like it after this last hour, but I just listened. And then they're like, we challenge you to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't come back a week later. I went to a meeting the next day and the next day and the next day. And just being around people again that were going through some far worse than what I was going through, like made it easier. That dynamic, right? Like I think of myself all the time. I was never an alcoholic because I always made sure one of my buddies was worse than I was in one area or the other, depending on what we were doing. Like one guy like had been cheating on his wife far longer, kind of thing. So I was good. Like I wasn't an adulterer till X. Um, I wasn't an alcoholic because so and so drank way more than I did and had a DUI and so on and so forth. All these things, and you just got to pull yourself out of those circles and get into a circle where people like want to talk about healing and getting better. So it's okay. It's okay to surrender.
Yeah, for me, it was a little tough to go to AA. I went to a meeting with a friend who was actually a lot worse off than what I was, and I told him I'd go with him. I didn't really like the environment. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I ended up downloading Reframe, which is a pretty good app. It gives you goals. It goes through a bunch of stuff every day. It gives you stuff to read about, and it gives you stuff to think about. And then there's virtual meetings pretty much all day. So it actually, for me, that really helped.
Oh,
I was
I
able to
mean,
set up a meeting.
the dynamic for me is hard because like I think of the course like that I have, and it's like basically the dynamic. I could send people there. It's just what worked for me, and basically, uh, I think about it today if because some people can't handle the stigma of being called an alcoholic, right? That dynamic of it. Like for me, I wear it like now as a token badge of, like I'll hold it above being an airborne ranger, retired lieutenant colonel, because I want to like go to the grave like being sober, and so that dynamic, the rest is in the past. So whatever gets people better, I don't care. I mean, to me, I could care less like
Right.
what it is. Like I just hope everyone gets better. And that's what's so cool about it. You have a different experience or whatever, which I love to hear. There's so many others out there that each person has a different way that they got there. And I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, me too. I think the big thing is like you're saying is getting there. It doesn't matter how you get there, just getting there, getting to that end point to being free from the alcohol, the drugs, that is the end goal if that's what you're seeking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it is at the end of the day is the you know our character defects that cause us to have our addictions, that obsession of whatever it is, because it's something like I said, move one, insert another. So that's what it comes down to is how do we get better at removing at least the first whatever the first one is, for you and I, right, is alcohol. So if someone's out there, with food or whatever it looks like, it's understanding like removing that initial addiction because it's whatever we're suffering from, you know,
Hmm.
just being that little kid that we needed to be protected and becoming the protector today that, I know my little 6-year-old dude that's still inside of me is like proud as hell that finally like he's got somebody stand up for him. So
Sounds good. Well, Ryan, appreciate the time today. Thank you for being on the show. Um, Again, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being part of this with me. And I look forward to seeing more of what you do in the future.
no, thanks, Brad. I greatly appreciate it. Without your platform, I'm not able to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Some changes don't come with certainty. They come with practice. Growth often shows up in small decisions, repeated consistently, long before the results feel visible. If this episode resonated, it may simply be because transition asks similar questions of all of us: how we create structure, what we lean on, and how we choose to move forward with clarity and support. Just a reminder, the stories and conversations in this podcast are for informational and personal reflection only. Nothing shared here should be taken as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always speak with a qualified professional about your own personal situation. Thank you for listening to No One Is Normal. If today's message resonated with you, you can find the book No One Is Normal on Amazon and Kindle, and explore more resources at www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co. Remember, you weren't meant to be normal, you were meant to be you.